Welcome to OWNorDisown, where tech decisions are made easy.
Hi, this is Stephen from OWNorDisown. Well, today we have the follow-up on my MSI GE78HX first look video. And in case you missed that, you can actually watch it here. Now in this video, I will focus on whether the GE77HX, which can be had for about $2,000, is better value than the new MSI GE78HX. Now the cheapest one I could see is $3,300 over at Micro Center. Now do we get benefits that warrant this 65% increase in price? And bear in mind that similarly spec systems such as the Alienware M16 or the M18 can be had for around about $2,600, so only a 30% increase there. Now before we get into that video, a quick word from today's sponsor, SoftwareKeep, who sells a range of PC software, including Microsoft Office for PC and Mac, copies of Windows and antivirus programs. Now all purchases are secured and safe, while all products are approved for sale by Microsoft. And indeed, when I purchased Office 2021 Professional Plus, it was added to my Microsoft account for lifetime use. They also offer subscription products like Office 365 and provide a single or an enterprise license. Now a quick look at resellerratings.com shows that they have a rating of 4.29 out of 5. And I had no issues at all. They do not use bots, and the chat I had is live with a live person, and they can assist you with your purchase. In their chat, their rep Denzel assured me that all keys are full retail versions, not volume licensing keys. They even provided details on how to remove any Office products that may be on my system for a hassle-free install. Use code ODYT20 for an exclusive 20% off. Now before we go into the physical changes between the GE77HX and the GE78HX, let's look at some performance numbers. The GE78HX has a 24-core, 32-thread 13980HX with 8 P cores that have a max boost of 5.6 GHz. The GE77HX has a 12800HX which has 16 cores, 24 threads with also 8 P cores with a max boost of 4.8 GHz. So we would expect to see a single core improvement of about 16%. And in Cinebench R23 single core test we see slightly less at 13%, but on the whole those extra threads really make a difference, bringing on average a 30% improvement. So spending an extra $600 on a new system may well be beneficial to you if you do a lot of work that needs CPU power. And when I switched from my 5800H to this 12800HX, it was like night and day, even in the multitasking side of things. So if you are coming from a CPU that's say a couple of years old now, I do really recommend the switch. Now I do have the Ryzen 9 7945HX machine coming in soon, and by all accounts that is even faster. As for gaming, I tested 6 games. Some with ray tracing and no DLSS, and some with ray tracing with DLSS, and some with just standard rasterization. I also threw in some frame generation using Hogwarts Legacy. I recorded both the average and minimal 1% lows and show the frame rates in this chart. And you'll see that there's definitely an improvement across the board. Now I averaged out the results and we see a 32% gain in average frame rate with the 175 watt RTX 4080 over the 150 watt RTX 3070 Ti, and a 17% improvement in 1% lows. And when I tested the Alienware M16, that actually had worse 1% lows than the GE77HX, but I do feel that the results I get here should be indicative of what you will see from most similarly spec'd systems. Frame generation saw a nice gain of 97% in average frame rate, and more importantly 37% in 1% lows. So based on these findings, I would say that spending the extra 30% or about $2,600 does make sense from a performance standpoint. Paying that 65% extra, it's a tough ask, unless the differences that I cover now, do make a big difference to you. Both systems use a 17-inch IPS level panel with a refresh rate of 240 Hz. The GE78HX has a taller 16x10 2560x1600 resolution versus the GE77HX standard 2560x1440. The new GE78HX is definitely brighter, peaking at 426 nits compared to 295 on the GE77HX. Even at 50% brightness, we see an improvement, and the colour gamut between the two are largely identical. Both are good for gaming and content creation, but given the choice, I would pick the brighter GE78HX, although it did mean that the battery life was shorter. I got like 2 hours 55 minutes on the GE78HX versus 3.5 hours on the GE77, both at 50% brightness, and both default to 60 Hz when put on battery, and each has the same 99 watt-hour battery. Neither has advanced Optimus, but they do have a mux switch, so you will need to manually disable the dedicated GPU. Also, neither has G-Sync, which I feel is a big omission on such expensive laptops, although ghosting and backlight bead were good on both. Here is a comparison of the webcam and mic. So here's a webcam. Got them actually on both the GE77HX and the GE78HX. I think the 78HX has a better webcam. The 77 overexposes it, and also the microphone is definitely better on the GE78. The GE78HX has a Windows Hello IR camera, which I do find very useful, and I do wish that my GE77HX had it. Both weigh the same at about £6, 12 ounces. And despite the taller 16:10 aspect ratio, the GE78HX isn't particularly any larger. It's a little bit taller, but it's definitely not as wide. Both have anodized aluminium lids, and the GE78HX is a little bit darker. It's more of a black colour. The GE78HX has a larger rear heatsink area to help cool the more powerful components. It also has a bit of a red trim near the hinge, and it removes a black plastic piece that seems to serve no purpose at all. The MSI emblem on the GE77 is embossed, whilst on the GE78 it's actually lit up by RGB. You can actually see the metal hinges on the GE78HX, and these do give a good feel of robustness and do seem stronger than the GE77. Both keyboard decks are adorned with crazy stickers, which of course, as you know, I hate. You will notice that the wrist area on the GE78 is much deeper, which does make it more comfortable to use. The trackpad is also much bigger, but it is now centered in the chassis rather than being centered on the actual keyboard. This made me keep missing it and took a little while for me to get used to. A big change is the volume keys are no longer on the arrow keys. Instead, we have boost fan, aiming reticule and media keys, which I do find useful. It was always a bit awkward pressing the right FN key and arrow keys to change the volume. The Rgb keyboard is brighter on the GE78 and has the same customization. I do like that it's brighter, and in my opinion it still has one of the nicest Rgb keyboards available. The RGB light bar at the front now shows individual RGB cells, which makes it brighter. I liked it, but some may feel that it's a little bit too much, but again, this lighting can be changed or turned off via the software. The GE78HX is more of a fingerprint magnet, so you make sure you keep that cleaning cloth handy. Both have upward facing speaker grills at the side, but the GE78 has MSI engraved into it, which is a nice touch. Here's the difference underneath. Both are actually quite similar, but I do prefer the look of the GE78HX, as you can see radar engraved in the air intake grille. The GE78 has 6 heat pipes versus 7 on the GE77, and also moves to a shared heat pipe design. That should help cool the CPU in CPU only tasks. Now in Cinebench R23, the GE78 was using 135 watts and was around about 87 to 95 degrees Celsius versus 87 degrees or using 113 watts on the GE77. Either way, cooling is much better than on the Alienware M16 or the M18. Gaming temperatures on both are very good, and I really cannot complain at all. You don't need to do any fancy undervolting, and you can easily increase fan speed with its dedicated button, or create your own fan curve via the software. Other than that, both have two M.2 slots and 2 RAM slots. Both also have access to MSI's advanced BIOS that allows you to undervolt and set power limits. I would say that the speakers are slightly louder and have a bit more bass on the GE78HX, and rank up there with some of the best that I have heard on a laptop. So, is the GE78HX worth the extra 65% over the GE77HX? No, I think it is overpriced, even at $3,300. If it were, say, at $2,800, I would say the speed improvements and the extra features you get do warrant that extra money. Now, don't get me wrong, it is a really nice and powerful laptop, but MSI does seem to be charging a premium compared to the competition. And I don't know why, because, you know, they do miss out on things like Advanced Optimus and G-Sync. Now, let me know in the comments what you think. I'd like to thank you for watching, and, you know, make sure to sub up, because I do have some interesting laptops coming up. I've got the GT77, the Alienware M18, the CyberPower Tracer 7, and the Asus ROG Strix Scar 17, and that has the 7945HX. That's coming in today, actually. So anyway, thank you for watching. Bye now.